Hi, I'm Riddhi Raj, the Reading Fairy, and welcome to a chapter read of Pretty Unexpected, a Christmas novella by Arini Vlotman as a part of the Femme Facade series. Chapter 1. Santa belonged in a horror movie, along with his creepy little elves and all their jingle bells. End of story. 'Twas not the season to be jolly, and everyone could fa la 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 all the way to the North Pole. Tando was not a festive person, except somehow she had been coerced into traveling halfway across the country to celebrate Christmas with her friends, all of whom she loved and cherished. But now she was forced to put aside her natural Grinch, whether she liked it or not. As she strode through the airport, a wobbly rendition of Santa Baby filtered through the speakers and ramped up her irritation level to boiling point. The holiday day crowd scurried out of her way. The purpose of her gait ensured everyone knew she meant business. It was a trick she'd learned to make up for her short height, and it worked every time. I am calm. I am peace. I need a drink. Isha, her best friend and conscious, often nagged Tando about reciting grounding mantras. And while Tando tried, she never quite achieved the results Isha had hoped for. Tando didn't need to be zen, she needed to let off some steam, preferably in a luxury spa on her own. Tando finally made her way through the barrage of other travelers to look for her driver. She swung her head from side to side, causing her spiraled locks to bounce around her face. A hired car was her preferred option, but Kane, Asia's beau and a new addition to their circle, had assured her she need not drive herself anywhere. Since he was making all the arrangements, it was one less thing to worry about. Hopefully, her driver was on time. She detested being late. 5 minutes later, Tando looked around, tapping her toes in annoyance. None of her friends were answering their phones, and it looked like she was stranded. Right, she'd just have to book an Uber and figure out the rest later. Decision made, she swung around, taking her rolling luggage with her, and bumped into a breathing pillar of steel. Where are you going in such a hurry? Tando shot her head up at the lazy words, so achingly familiar, before narrowing her eyes. What are you doing here? She put a hand up before he could answer. Never mind. I forgot that you like to ride to the rescue. Jimmy Warner was like a slab of chocolate, smooth and tempting at the moment, but once consumed, left you with a mountain of regret. And Tando wanted to devour every inch of his golden oak body. The intense weekend they'd spent together months before lingered in her memory, and from the spark in his forest green eyes, Jimmy was remembering their time together as well. Come on, babe. Aren't you a little happy to see me? Or are you giving yourself a moment to soak me in? He flashed a dimpled smile at her before wrestling her bag out of her hands. You better hurry. My parking ticket is already paid for. With that, Jimmy turned and strolled away without a care in the world. From his attitude, he didn't seem to be thinking of their previous encounter at all. Who could play that game? Tando fumed as she hurried after him. Her sneaky friends had obviously orchestrated this little reunion, and Jimmy hadn't deterred them. Well, he'd better not be sticking around if he knew what was good for him. She finally caught up to him and snatched her bag out of his hands. Since my lift was late, I've already ordered a ride. Your services are no longer needed. A loud laugh boomed from his chest, infectious and warm. I love it when you go all snooty on me. It's quite the turn on. Tando rolled her eyes before giving him a sweet smile. I have that effect on men. All that and more. With that parting shot, he grabbed her bag again and continued walking, forcing her to follow him through the crowds and to his waiting car. Tando was many things, but a follower she was not. Determined, she slowed her walk, straightened her shoulders, and strolled sedately after him. A blast of heat greeted her as she exited the airport, a cool breeze following close on its heels, relieving the tension pulling at her shoulders. She paused just outside the automated doors and inhaled the balmy summer air. She had traveled to many cities, but Cape Town held a special place for her. With its old world culture combined with a touch of contemporary chic, the city held a spark of something special. Too bad she wouldn't be enjoying it. She could, however, enjoy the view of Jimmy's behind as he bent down to load her bag into the boot of his SUV parked at the curb. Before meeting him, she never knew a man's legs could be attractive. But now, wearing his trademark chino shorts, the corded muscles in his calves bulged and remind Tando of those very legs wrapped around her. Excuse me, ma'am, I need your help, please. A harassed looking woman stepped in front of Tando, distracting her from her wayward thoughts. The parking machine doesn't want to take my note. Do you have change for 100? Sure, Tando smiled. We've all been there. She reached for her backpack, which carried her laptop, purse, Belgium chocolate, and other essential items she had to have with her at all times. Though she didn't often have cash, she kept a few notes on hand in case of emergencies. The doors of the airport entrance opened to the side of her, and a flood of travelers walked out, all jostling to get to their destinations as quickly as possible. The airport was chaotic at the best of times, but 3 days before Christmas, it was a war zone. Someone bumped into her, sending her stumbling forward, while another knocked her arm. Hey, watch it! I'm standing right here, she protested at the uncaring horde. A weight on her hand brought her attention back to what she was doing. The woman now stood directly in front of Tando, her fingers wrapped around the backpack. What do you think you're doing? Adrenaline coursed through her, and she tugged at the backpack but found her hand free of the weight she'd been holding. She looked down, and her eyes widened at the glint of a knife in the stranger's hand. She opened her mouth to yell, but someone pushed her again, cutting off her breath. In the blink of an eye, she was alone and empty handed. The woman carried bricks with her on holiday, probably ammunition against him since she didn't seem too keen on his presence. That could only be the explanation for why Tando's luggage was so heavy. Jimmy grunted with effort as he rearranged the damn thing in his boot before closing it and looking around for her. He turned to see her a few meters away, surrounded by a moving mass of strangers. The scowl on her face made him smile, which quickly turned to a frown when he noticed her being jostled to and fro. A strange woman moved in close to her and blocked his view. There was something suspicious about how the stranger was crowding Tando's space. Jimmy stalked in their direction, and while it only took a few seconds for him to reach her, the woman disappeared as quickly as she'd arrived, leaving Tando alone, confusion on her face. That heifer stole my bag, she burst when she spotted him. Jimmy grabbed her by the shoulders, hoping to ground her. Tell me what happened. Who was the woman standing with you? In a quick, factual summary, Tando explained what happened. So as soon as you were distracted, she made a grab for the bag? Jimmy asked. Tando frowned before her eyes widened, her deep brown irises contracting in the sunlight and softening her face. Son of a cow. She scammed me. Me. Tando Kunene, she muttered, before moving out of his arms. Jimmy shook his head. The only soft thing about this woman was her curves. Come on, let's go and report it, then I'll take you to the holiday house. Having a course of action calmed her down, and within an hour she had blocked her bank cards and made a statement with the airport police. Though he'd offered to help, Tando had waved him away, suggesting he grab a bite to eat. As if he'd leave her alone. Left to his own devices, Jimmy took a seat and used the opportunity to observe her. He admired how she dealt with the paperwork, answering the barrage of questions from one of the stressed out officers on duty without reducing the man to tears. She may be as prickly as a bear waking up from hibernation with Jimmy, but he knew that was a defense mechanism. Most of her interactions were efficient and without any fluff. What she didn't know was that he had a good idea of the woman who existed beneath the facade. She displayed passion, empathy, and a fierce loyalty to whoever she deemed worthy. Jimmy was not worthy. Let's blow this joint, Tando announced as she wrapped up. I need a drink. Pronto. So, how did you end up getting conned into this holiday? Jimmy asked. Once out of the mayhem of city traffic, the roads opened and he settled into the motion of driving. Tando had been quiet thus far, probably stewing over allowing herself to get robbed. Emotional blackmail, Tando sighed. She glanced over at him, sunglasses perched on the bridge of her nose. Amy started the campaign months ago. She's like an annoying water leak wearing down solid concrete. It doesn't matter how hard you think you are, once she starts on something, it's only a matter of time before you agree. Tando, Asia, and Amy had been friends since primary school, and from the interactions Jimmy had witnessed, they were as tight as the bun in his mother's hair. Kane, his best friend and business partner, was head over heels in love with Asia and had regaled Jimmy with tales of the girl's exploits, spanning all the way from primary school. What about you? Tando asked. Jimmy shrugged in response. Kane and Asia told me about it a few weeks ago, and here I am. It hadn't been as cut and dried, though. He'd been reluctant to join the holiday once he found out Tando was going. They had a short but steamy affair with an abrupt ending that left him bewildered. After an incredible weekend together, she'd dropped him like a stinky sock and moved on with her life. With no idea what went wrong, he'd gone to Asia and found out Tando had left the country on a 3-month work secondment. Left with little choice, Jimmy had let it go. He often wondered if he gave up too easily because he knew there was something between them. But at that time, his parents announced their divorce after almost 40 years together and sent him reeling. He'd thought of her often since then, unable to eradicate her from his mind. Tando didn't respond, and after a minute, Jimmy decided they'd best clear the air. Are you going to tell me why you didn't return my calls? Tando froze, heart hammering, hard put not to react to Jimmy's casual question. She knew this was coming, but that didn't make it any easier. She flicked her gaze over to his and swallowed down the lump in her throat. There's nothing to say. We both agreed it would be a once off thing, and I stuck to my end of the bargain. She shrugged and looked out the window, hoping he'd drop it. I see. His reply was soft, muted. And of course, once you decide something, there's no room for discussion. What's there to discuss? If you want to hear how great it was, I'm happy to reaffirm your manly pride. Why did he have to make things this messy? Jimmy barked out a laugh. I forget how little we actually know each other, he said, shaking his head. That weekend meant more to me than a roll in the sheets. I felt something, and I know you did too. Then why did you leave? Damn it. She promised herself she'd never ask, and yet here she was, pleading for an explanation. One minute we're dozing on the couch, and the next you were gone. A bit of the resentment she'd been harboring towards him reared its ugly head. Of course she felt what he did. She'd have to be Elsa not to. Men may have called her an ice queen in the past, but Tando enjoyed the heat of a sizzling man like anyone else. Those few days had been wild, fueled by an intense investigation to absolve Isha and Kane of corporate espionage. After the adrenaline of the chase to keep their friends safe, they'd fallen into each other's arms, seeking to let off some steam. They'd gone into it with open eyes, both admitting to their attraction, and it had been so easy to be with him. Jimmy was relaxed, calm, and effortless, the opposite of her. In fact, she'd gotten so comfortable in those few days, she'd ended up dropping most of her barriers. They spent hours talking, laughing, and being intimate, And on a logical level, she knew their bubble had to end, but she couldn't remember why until he brushed a kiss on her cheek and mumbled about having things to do. We talked about it, he responded, confused. I hadn't been home for days and I had things to see to. We also had the meeting with the security team the next morning and all those loose ends to tie up. Talked about it? She asked in disbelief. All I got was one sentence brushing me off. No mention of seeing me again or calling. No flowers, no calls, radio silence. What did you expect? Her fists tightened as she talked, and she had to remind herself to relax. The man was going to drive her crazy. To her immense satisfaction, he squirmed in his seat, hands tightening on the steering wheel. Look, I am not like Kane, okay? I hate schedules and plans, but I definitely prefer to go with the flow. He paused before reaching over to squeeze her hand. And I'm an ass. I should have realized how abrupt my leaving was. I'm an idiot. Tando rolled her eyes with feigned casualness. The irritating man didn't even know what he'd done wrong. Yes, you are. But it's over, and now that we've cleared the air, we can enjoy the holiday without our friends watching our every move. But we still. Jimmy's voice stopped when his phone rang. Tando heaved a sigh of relief and left him to his conversation, refusing to dwell on how his presence affected her. That was chapter one of Pretty Unexpected, a Christmas novella from the Femme Facade series written by author Arini Vlotman. And if you'd like to have the Christmas magic go on for a little while longer, you can definitely grab a copy of her books, available locally and internationally. Thanks for watching.